What is up, viewer, other watchers of Larks, back here, bringing you this time, Expectations 4. This is a new series I'm going to be doing at the end of this most recent 17-18 NHL season. We're going to be talking about players that we saw in the Canucks lineup, players that might be able to make the Canucks lineup, just players that are within the Canucks organization. This is basically why I want, but a little bit different. We're not talking about prospects that we could draft, we're talking about guys that are already on the team. So, Brock Boeser. I'm starting things off with him because he's basically the face that runs the place in point-producing Vancouver Canuck land over here. Despite his unfortunate and terrible injury, he still led the Canucks in points, or at least he was tied for the lead in points, with Daniel Sedin with 55 points in 62 games played, 29 goals as well. So, had Brock Boeser played 2, maybe 3 more games, he probably would have been a 30-goal scorer in his first year. And I say that because if you remember the time when Brock Boeser was still playing before he got injured, he was on a little bit of a cold streak. He was getting some assists and whatnot, but he wasn't necessarily getting that many goals as he was in the beginning parts of this season. So obviously, he did cool down a little bit, but still, in his last 9 games, Brock Boeser got himself 2 goals and 4 assists for a total of 6 points in 9 games. That's not bad at all. Of course, a lot of people are looking at this, and when they watched Brock Boeser out there on the ice, they could see that he was still getting a lot of chances, it's just that they weren't going in. In fact, those 2 goals that Brock Boeser scored in his last 9 games, they were both in the same game against the New York Rangers. That was an overtime loss for the Canucks. So, obviously, Brock Boeser is an effective player, and he was an effective player this last season. So what are the expectations for him going into 2018-19? I'm going to go over my personal expectations and other expectations that other people might proceed to put on him. As well, you guys can comment down in the comments what you believe the expectations are, in your opinions, for Brock Boeser going next year. So the first thing I want to talk about, goals. I think he's going to get 30 goals. That's the expectation here. He barely missed out on that last season because of Cal Clutterbuck, but if he was able to play at least 65 games this past season, he would have gotten 30 goals. So, I think that the expectation next year is to get that 30 goals, maybe even up that ante up, 35 at a max. So, I think a lot of people are expecting the same kind of production from Brock Boeser, maybe just a little bit more added to his point totals, goal totals, and whatnot, because he did get 55 points in 62 games played, which is very, very impressive. If you do that over an 82-game pace, Brock Boeser was on pace for 73 points and a total of 38 goals. So, that's very good. Actually, you know what? I think going forward, the biggest expectation for Brock Boeser should be, I'm not saying it is, I think it should be, it's very obvious, the games played. I said that I believe the biggest expectation for him is the goals. I do believe that sincerely, but I believe that the most underlying thing that we should all hope for is games played. Because if he gets those games played, he's getting those points. That is for sure. That is a constant with Brock Boeser's game. So, what exactly are we expecting with these goal totals and whatnot? Well, I said a max at 35, but I'm hoping he at least hits 30. So, I'm putting myself at a really reasonable expectation right here. 30 plus goals for Brock Boeser, but I'm capping it off at 35. Meaning that anything above 35, if he's able to grab it next year, it's above my expectations. It's exceeding the expectations. So, this is what I believe. And in terms of the assists, I think that Brock Boeser, with his really good 26 assists last season, I think he'll stay around that area. 25 to 30 assists is what I predict for Brock Boeser, and honestly, I think it shouldn't really be something that people expect to go up. I know Brock Boeser could potentially be an incredibly much better player next season, and he would be able to enhance his playmaking ability, but I don't know if I see Brock Boeser cracking 35 plus assists playing with a team that looks like this. If Elias Pettersson grabs himself a spot on the roster next year and he's able to maintain a strong presence like he did playing for the Vancouver Lakers this year, then I could totally see Boeser's point totals going up, but For now, we don't know how well Pettersson's game is going to translate to the NHL. I believe it will, but we don't know. So for now, what we're looking at is the things that we got on the team today. And Brock Boeser playing alongside of guys like Bo Horvat. If Horvat's able to maintain his good, strong play, trending upwards, then yes, Brock Boeser will get more assists. But right now, I'm capping things off. 35 goals, 30 assists at a maximum 65 points for Brock Boeser. I know that's very limited. I know that there's a lot of people out there who probably have Brock Boeser grabbing himself 70-plus points, 75-plus points, maybe even a point-per-game player at 82. But as for me, I'm capping things off at 65. I think it's a very reasonable expectation, and it's one that I believe will showcase a good amount of growth for Brock Boeser. Because as long as he gets those 82 games played, or even 75-plus games played, he's good. I think he's good to go, and I think that for the most part, what this team needs at the moment isn't a whole bunch of victories and, like, first in the league in goals or whatever. This team still needs to develop. We just got rid of the Sedin twins, and now we're heading into the new era. So, we don't need to be super competitive right off the bat. We don't need to get a whole bunch of free agents that will help us win, because we're just simply not in the position to win right now. Which is why I'm okay with Brock Boeser not being a Rocket Richard winner. Sure, if he does do that, that's great, but I'm limiting my expectations here. 65 points for Brock Boeser. But that's just the points. We still got to talk about everything else. What's he going to play like? Who's he going to play with? How exactly are things going to fare for Brock Boeser? Obviously, it's his second season, so there's going to be a big talk about, sophomore slump, right? And for the most part, the Vancouver Canucks rookies coming in, they've had sort of a good time dealing with the sophomore slump, at least for the ones that made the team. Bo Horvat, for example, didn't really get too affected by the quote-unquote curse, but overall, other players like Jared McCann, Jake Verten, and Ronald Kennens, these guys didn't necessarily have really good second seasons coming in, and a few of these guys didn't even make the team after they played seasons with the Canucks. So, obviously, I think that if Brock Boeser makes the team, he's good, because he automatically breaks that record of guys having sophomore slumps, at least in Vancouver. And in regards to guys who have made the team, they haven't really necessarily exhibited sophomore slumps. Players like Ben Hutton, though, he has exhibited a junior slump, let's just say, because in his third year playing for the Canucks, he really didn't show up. That was this season, so I probably will make the next episode of Expectations for on Ben Hutton. But talking about Brock Boeser here, I think he's safe from the slump, and obviously we saw his talent. He's a Calder finalist with only 62 games played. That's great. 55 points for a 70-something point pace and a pace of 38 goals. This kid was incredible last season, and with not that good of a supporting staff around him. He didn't necessarily play with the 50-point scorer Sedin twins all that much, other than on the power play, and even on the power plays, he didn't really get the puck that much either, because Edler wouldn't pass it to him half the time. So, obviously, Brock Boeser was playing with a lot of setbacks this season, changing line mates on the daily, but when he did get a lot of good chemistry with guys like Baertschi and Horvat, and then that other line with Gagne and Vanek, things looked really, really good out there. So, expectations going for Brock Boeser next season, please, just keep it up. That's all we're expecting here. I'm expecting a max of 65 points, putting Caps up at 35 goals and 30 assists. I hope at least that he reaches 30 goals. But, in order for him to reach all these goals, he'll need to get games played, which is the biggest thing here that a lot of people aren't really thinking about, to be honest, because if we see Brock Boeser with an 82-point pace, things will be very interesting to see, assuming that he does increase his skill over the summer and he maintains an even better point-per-game rating. Things are going to look very, very interesting in the next few years, but the next season is the one that we're looking at here. So overall, I think it's very, very easy to see that Brock Boeser was the most offensively capable player on the Canucks last season, competing with the best of the best amongst the NHL. He was top 5, top 6 in goals for quite some time before getting injured, and in terms of the Calder race, he basically had that one up until he started going cold, and the final nail in the coffin for him not winning the Calder was that injury, because that was also the time frame when Barzal went ham on the league. But These are my 2018-2019 expectations for Brock Boeser. Comment down what you think should happen with Brock Boeser next season, how well he should perform. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Plus, gaming, and bye.